Welcome back to TV Tangents, a retro TV podcast. Today we're talking about the 90s hit Living Single, starring Queen Latifah and Kim Fields. Back, Natalie.
Welcome back, Rebecca.
How you been?
Good. Very good. I watched a lot very quickly of Living Single.
You have to watch it very quickly because it's addictive.
It is. And I'm glad it's 5 seasons. I actually started this a long time ago. You were like, oh, I'm watching Living Single, and it's really funny, and you got to watch it. You'll love it. And I'm like, okay. So I started watching a few episodes here and there, and then it was like we were watching other stuff, and then I was doing other things, and I'm like, yeah. And so I never really got the momentum of getting into it. And so I literally watched like the first half of the first season, and then we were always watching something else. And then you were like getting close. I thought you told me you were done, I think, at one point. And I was like, oh, I'm going to watch it. And I think I watched all of it in like 9 days or something.
Oh my goodness.
I had extra time like during the week or so. I don't even remember what, but I watched it. And then I like couldn't stop because I was like, oh my God. Then I was totally sucked in. And this show's great. I can always tell when we do shows that when I don't have a lot of notes, it's because I got so sucked in and I was so just involved that I don't stop to write notes. And the only notes I have are, oh, this person showed up. Like this special guest showed up. So is kind of funny.
That's me too. I don't have a lot of notes on the show because it's like there's a flow. It's more like you're living in it.
Yeah.
Than you're watching it.
Yes.
And so I'm like just not taking notes because it's so natural.
Yeah.
And I did start watching it, I don't know, a while ago.
Yeah.
Because, I'm working from home, and it was one of those that I was watching a different show, and it came up on my Hulu. It just started playing the pilot episode, and the pilot episode was so good.
Yeah.
Which I don't think happens a lot with pilot episodes.
That's true.
They don't generally suck me in because they haven't met their stride yet. And I feel like this show still had to get into its flow for the first season because you don't know the characters yet. But the comedy was strong enough in the first episode that it's just like, it's funny after funny after funny.
Yeah.
And you're like laughing all the time.
Yeah. There was never times where I was like, and again, I like the shows when they don't drag. Every once in a while you were a few things here and there, but not really to the point where I'd be like whole episodes where I'd be like, oh, I just have it on in the background.
Yeah.
I always wanted to see what was happening. And you're right. And it was always funny. And I kind of thought like in the first season, I noticed a few times. And again, I feel like this happens with every show we watch when especially the actors or actresses aren't, if they're not overly established in other shows or something along those lines, sometimes you can see them like, almost like looking at the camera or laughing because you're supposed to laugh there, like to each other. And we've discussed that with other shows too. I'm like, so getting into that in the very beginning. And then they all just like found their stride. So same thing. They didn't have to overplay.
And I saw an interview I'm going to talk about later with Kim Coles where she was talking about how they were all so close, like the actors, and that like from the beginning they had such a good time being together.
Yeah.
And that you can see that in the show, and they did get to like sometimes just ad-lib lines. So a lot of times when they're laughing, they're like genuinely laughing and like enjoying each other's company, and that they would spend like birthdays together and get together all the time, and they are still friends.
I love hearing that about shows because it's like you look at them and these characters are best friends, and then sometimes you find out, some of us, when you find out about the real world, like that people weren't good friends. And I think we had touched on that somewhere along the lines, maybe in one of our episodes, I feel like when we talked about like when Dustin Diamond passed away or something, and we were talking about, well, like Zach and Screech are friends in real life, right? Like, you know, you just little things like that, and people are like, it's a job. And we forget that because they're on a show that is like part of you. And especially stuff we watched as kids, you're just like, oh no, that's who that is. You know, you're like, that's Khadijah and that's Sinclair. And that, so it's so, I love to hear that. And you're right, you could tell that a lot of times. I would watch certain things and it was almost like, even with the guys, you know, it would like be one of the girls and one of the guys would have some inside joke. And it was just, they'd laugh like for real. Somebody just said that and it came out like, and no one had it planned. So I was like, oh, that's so cute.
Especially a lot of like Overton and Sinclair were like very flirty with each other when their characters were dating, and they would crack each other up. It was really cute.
Yeah, I love them. Oh my God.
So Living Single was created by Yvette Lee Bowser and first aired on Fox on August 22nd, 1993. Which is right after I graduated from high school. It's about 6 friends who live in the Prospect Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn. They live in a brownstone, which I'm pretty sure has other tenants, like based on the mailbox situation.
Yes.
But I can't really remember. I mean, I watched this show over, the last 2 years. And I watched the last 2 seasons, like, last month. So... the ladies live on the ground floor, and then the guys live upstairs.
Yeah, I actually, when I first started watching it, I was like, okay, where do they live? And then at first it looks like the girls are like in an apartment, and you're like, okay, well then in their kitchen, it goes to the outside. Right. So you're like, oh, because I mean, at one point, it's, barbecuing outside or coming in that door with groceries. I was like, oh. And then when you start to see it, so yeah, it's a brownstone that was like apparently turned into apartments because the guy's apartment, then we get to see too, they have kind of a loft in there, but they don't have an upstairs really. The girls have like a full upstairs and downstairs to their whole place. And again,
the boys' apartment is cool though.
Yeah.
Like for a guy's apartment.
Yeah, it is really cool.
It's got the little loft area and then like the kind of an office area underneath that.
Underneath, yeah.
Interesting.
It is. It's almost like how a dorm would be. And they have a whole separate kitchen that you never see. The guys do. And so, but yeah, there were other tenants because early on, Morris Chestnut, moves in upstairs and whatever. And
that's right. Yeah. And what's her name moved in there for a while. That she was dating Tripp, their roommate later. Or did she live in the guy's apartment?
Oh, that's right. I don't know.
Again, it's... okay.
Now I can't remember. You're right.
I forget her name. I'll get to it. So in early 1993, Fox announced that Queen Latifah and Kim Fields were working on a new show, but at the time it was called My Girls. Kind of based on the song, My Girl. Oh. Which I think they sing at the end of the pilot or something.
Oh, that's right. They do.
Yeah, and then the name was changed by the network 3 weeks before it aired. Which I think either name would have worked.
Yeah.
I have, by the way, put out a lot of TikToks on our TV Tangents TikTok account of this show because there were so many funny moments that I was like, I got to put this out there. The general consensus in the comment section from the male viewers was that Max is like the favorite. Like everybody was in love with Max in my comment section.
She became... by far, I think, my favorite. Everybody's great, and they all have their, different personalities. She can pull off also physical comedy.
Hilarious.
Like no one, we've joked before. I know when we talked about like Three's Company, it's like, slaps. I mean, like he got, he gets caught in an ironing board or what, and then hits somebody else with it. And it's, some sitcoms did it crazy. Hers is like sprinkled in, like she climbs up on the kitchen counter at one point, or just like when they maybe it is Morris Chestnut. At one point, she goes running over the furniture and everyone to get to the door first. And I mean, it's hilarious.
She is really good at that.
She pulls it off.
There was the episode where they were in a girl group in the 60s, which is one of my favorite episodes.
Yes.
And she got twisted up in the microphone and fell off the stage and was like on the ground, and her face, she has the best facial expressions and she is just hilarious.
She really is.
She's a great character. She wasn't even supposed to be part of the show.
I think I remember seeing that too.
Hold on,
and somebody saw her because I remembered her from The Cosby Show.
So the characters are Khadijah James, who is the editor of Flavor Magazine. She grew up in New Jersey. All these characters are a different personality, which is why the show stays interesting, because you've got all these different types of people, and there's always like a B story that's going on. Then you've got her cousin, Sinclair James, who is her receptionist in the beginning, but she wants to be an actor. And she's also obsessed with troll dolls.
Which we don't find out right away.
Right.
So I was like, that's so funny. That was kind of a little
I feel like it was in there, but like we were like, but it wasn't in your face. And then when they did the flashback to when she moved in with Khadijah and she rolled up with like a giant troll doll or whatever. And I was like, what's happening?
Yep.
I used to work with a woman who was obsessed with Living Single, and I had never seen it. And so she would quote Living Single all the time. And she'd be like, did you not watch Living Single? And I'm like, no, sorry. So it was like the way that we quote shows and get frustrated with people not understanding.
She's like, why don't you see this?
And she was very Sinclair. She, like, as soon as I started watching Living Single, I was like, oh, that's where Shanita got that from. Like, she would say woo, woo, woo all the time.
Oh, my God. I love that, too.
Sinclair
woo, woo,
is
woo.
so funny. She's so, like, she's so innocent and funny and happy and very expressive.
Yeah, I love in the beginning. She's so like unassuming and very, they play her off to be a little dumb and ditzy. And she kind of is, but it's almost like she's naive in certain ways. And even in the beginning, like before her and Overton get together, because it was very like, they'd be like flirty, but never to the point where they're not going to say anything to each other.
The pilot episode, she immediately was like, oh, I like him.
Yeah.
And Khadijah was like, do not have that man's baby. So
and I love it because they're just like, it's very, that took into season 1 for them to like get together. And he was very much like, coming to try, he's the handyman, so he's trying to find things to fix so he can hang around Sinclair.
So sweet. Like,
they're so cute.
They're like the dumb characters, but it's really not, they're not dumb, they're just like innocent.
Yeah.
And sometimes they play that up. Just, I don't know, just because it's like their character. They're like, like she's not always dumb. Sometimes she plays dumb. Just so people will treat her a certain way.
I think so. And him too. Because we'll get into it later, but there's a part where I was like, when he called out Kyle for something, and I was just like, oh man, he's over and smarter than he thinks.
Regina Hunter then is Khadijah's childhood friend, and she's the third roommate. She goes by Regine because she was very fancy. And she's a buyer for a boutique. And then later she's a costume designer and then a wedding planner. And she's a self-proclaimed gold digger.
She's so cute. And I thought 100% for some reason that Kim Fields was so much older than she is when she's on the show.
Well, when she started in Facts of Life, she was only like 11.
I thought she was like 8 or something. Like I was trying to look back at her age and different things. And I'm like, because one episode made me think of something. And I'm like, how old is she right now? So of course, get up my friend Google. And I'm like, in the beginning, I think when they started, she was like 23. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because, and again, my head, I'm thinking that the Facts of Life was in the early 70s. And, so in my brain, I'm like, wait, isn't she got to be like almost 40? And,
it's hard to piece these things together.
So my brain didn't let me accept that. But she's also perfect in this role.
Perfect. I love Regine. She is the best dresser, and her wardrobe is amazing. And she always has good wigs.
Yes, and she talks about how much she's always talking about her wigs, but one of my favorite things, and I was doing it all the time, was, sucky now. And she says that all the time, and I found myself saying it so much. I was like, sucky now.
She's a great character. It's like the Blanche Devereaux of this show.
Yeah.
Like she's the saucy one who is very confident with herself. And so you get that kind of humor in it. It's really good. Then Maxine Shaw is Khadijah's best friend from college. And she grew up in Philly. And she's a lawyer.
Yes.
And she is no nonsense. She's very, I don't have feelings. I don't have emotions. I just want you to do what I want you to do.
Yes. And that's very strong woman, very, knows what she wants, very driven. Of course, we see the softer side of her later, but
Well, she's in love with Kyle Barker, the stockbroker who lives upstairs.
Yes. And the whole time, though, the very beginning, they are insults flying every single day.
Love it.
Back and forth to each other.
They're perfect together. They're a perfect couple.
Yeah. I mean, I legit, in the beginning, I was like, this is going to go somewhere because they're just, they hate each other so much. And I was like, they're playing this up too much. They're playing this up too much. And then...
But I didn't feel like it was bad that they never really were together for very long. Yeah. Because they weren't good for each other. But there was like chemistry. So you wanted to see them together. Yeah. But you also didn't want to see them together. And I think it worked. I didn't think it was so like annoying.
Right. They got together and it was very interesting because...
I loved the episode where they got together.
Well, one, he like saved her life, technically. A guy robbed a convenience store and he just happened to come in the store and knocked the guy down. And Max jumps on him and freaks out. Like, you saved my life. So then she wants to make him dinner and have a whole like, I need to give you gratitude kind of thing. Well, his conscience is like, I didn't even do it on purpose. So he cancels and then she still makes him go anyway. She gets all dressed up and he's looking all nice and, whatever. And then they were playing piano and he can sing. Like, I mean, talk about you singing. Oh, my God. And he melts her. But I was like, oh, yeah, this guy. So they're sitting there. And I mean, at one point, they're both kind of like, she's melting into it because he's singing and then they kiss. And then she's like, is this really happening? He's like, oh, honey, it's already been happening. And I was like, oh, girl.
And then after they did it and they were just insulting each other. It was
because so I guess good. Early on, I forgot they accidentally drunkenly get together.
They did hook up in the beginning and they were both
and they were mortified.
Disgusted, but not really because they kept doing it.
Right, because everybody found out about it too. So they told everyone, so they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But pretty soon, like when they finally were together, everybody was like, well, duh. Right. Like you guys belong together.
We know it. Everybody knows it.
It was so funny.
Yeah, Overton was always like, I know, but I can't tell anybody. And like...
Well, when they got together, and it was like, when it was a secret time. So, right, they got together first and they broke up. And then when they got back together, then it was a secret. Yeah. And that was what I was saying, too, about Overton. They were in Max's apartment because he was moonlighting as her handyman or something. And he was over there. And I don't remember what happened, but Kyle was there. So he's hiding. And then Maxine leaves. And Overton's in the living room. He's like, Kyle, you better get out here and get your woman, because da-da-da-da-da. And he comes out like, how'd you know I was here? No, she's not my woman. And like, he's all freaking out. And I was like, see, Overton knows.
Yeah, they were spicy. The episode where he's singing my what is it? My Funny Valentine.
Yes.
That's the one. Mm-hmm. And she's like sweating and fanning herself, and
everybody's looking at her.
Something. Yeah, everybody's like, "What?" And that's where like her comedic genius comes in because her face is like, and everybody's looking at her like, "What is going on?" Mm-hmm. I mean, that would have melted me.
Because I think wasn't it too? He went up to sing, and she showed up one night, and she takes her jacket off, and she's dressed in like a skin tight, and then he can't sing. Because he's looking at her and he's like, oh, and then she was like, oh, well, you froze. Da, 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 da. Well, then the next time he sings that and she melts. And then at one point, too, he was like up at the bar and he said something to her and she just turned around all like, hey, what? And he kind of gave her like a wink. I was like, oh my God.
I think I watched that episode like 3 times in a row.
Yeah. I 100% love them together.
Me too. Kyle's roommate is Overton Wakefield Jones, also called Obie.
Obie.
And he is the handyman of the building. And he also is a co-owner of the building. Is he a co-owner through the whole thing? I don't remember.
Oh.
But he is a co-owner of the building.
I don't even think I knew that.
And he is all about his tools and fixing things. He's great.
And educating people about what it means to be a handyman.
He is hilarious.
He's awesome.
And then later in the series, when Obie and Sinclair get married and Kyle moves to London, then the ladies get a new roommate named Trip.
Yes.
Who's also a songwriter. And he's the one who is, I think he's like dating the DJ who lives in the apartment where
so
Overton and Kyle
had been. Yes. Because Overton and Sinclair get an apartment like in the basement. Mm-hmm. And which also is a really nice apartment and also changed between episode 3 and 4 when they get to an apartment. Their whole setup of their apartment kind of changed. And I was like, oh, well, this makes more sense. So I could see where they would do that. But yeah, she's living there because they used to date, right? And then all of a sudden she was like pretending she didn't like Trip. And then they were like secretly dating again or something. Same thing.
They were secretly dating. I don't know if it's because she had a boyfriend or like...
Yeah, maybe that was it.
I don't remember why they weren't supposed to be dating.
Yeah.
But,
and she kind of, I mean, I never really felt, she wasn't super, that was like the last season anyway, so she kind of wasn't.
She wasn't established.
Yeah, she never really, I never, like when you said that I forgot about her. So I literally, I'm like, I couldn't even remember that she was around.
Because the last season wasn't filmed as the last season.
Yeah.
The show was canceled in December of, what was it, 92? 93?
No, started in 93, so it must have been like 97-ish or so.
So, yeah, so they filmed the episodes in like May. And then then they delayed the release until January.
Oh, that's right.
And they announced the cancellation in like December. Mm-hmm. And it was a shock to everybody because the show wasn't like the most popular show on TV, but it was doing really well. And then they just suddenly were canceled.
They're like, nope, sorry.
Yeah. So they kind of had to wrap it up, and it felt very rushed at the end that they did it.
Yeah.
And I was not satisfied.
No, I wasn't either. I mean, it was very, that could have definitely gone on and on because it was so good. But, the end was very strange. And, I mean, we did get a little bit of... Not so much closure.
There was,
but...
like they wrapped it up. There was closure, I felt like, but it was more in a, we got to do this so that you're satisfied.
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
Here's a TV tangents fact. If you're wondering about the key that Khadijah sometimes wears around her neck in the show, here's the story. Queen Latifah had an older brother named Lancelot Jr., to whom she gifted a motorcycle. And in 1992, he was killed in an accident on the bike. And so the key around her neck was the key to the motorcycle.
I feel like I might have read that when I very first started watching this.
So she had already been established as a rapper, and she already had her career. She bought a motorcycle. He passed away. That happened before Living Single started. Oh, so she wore the key around her neck, which is sad.
That is very sad.
And I had to go back when I learned that fact and watch some episodes because I was like, I don't remember a key around her neck. But it's there. It's very large. It's not a little key.
Yeah. I think I do. I think I might have seen something about that, and then I realized then I would see it when she was wearing it. I was like, oh, yeah.
So another thing about the pilot episode is that, so the show, you've got to have a pilot. That's how you sell the show. And so a lot of studios don't have a big budget for these pilots. So they use other sets. They used the Winslow house.
Oh.
From Family Matters. And their front door opens to the outside in the pilot episode. And then once the series was picked up, they built their set and they mostly kept it the same. They made it a little smaller. They kept the stairs, but they made the door open to the hallway.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting. I guess I can't. It's been so long since I watched the first one, so I
had to go back and watch the pilot because I was like,
interesting.
Because it looks almost exactly the same. It's just a little smaller.
Now that you just said that, their kitchen is so similar.
It's like similar to a lot.
The way those windows are similar to the Family Matters kitchen, so that's interesting. Huh? That's good to know.
Originally, Maxine, like I said, she was one of the roommates, but then the network wanted to cut her from the show because they felt like she wasn't needed. Like there were 4 roommates and they didn't need 4 roommates or whatever. So Yvette Bowser, the creator, felt that she was too important to the show. So they compromised and they moved her to an apartment across the street, which adds like a different comedic layer because she's the person who comes in and isn't supposed to be there, but she's always there.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that kind of character is good in any sitcom. Like there's Steve Urkel, Kimmy Gibbler, Skippy from Family Ties.
Skippy, yep.
Niles from Frasier.
Frasier, yep.
like we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
How we want to live in an apartment where our friend just shows up
Pops
and walks
over.
in the door.
Right.
Like at any time.
Right.
Which we don't really because we like our privacy. But
yeah, which is also funny, though, when you think about it in certain situations. This way it makes sense. But some of those, like that you just said, although, like, young people would live close by, but, like, in Seattle, Niles isn't that close.
Right.
It can't be, you know. But you think about other shows where everyone, like, lives really close, and that happens in New York because people live close.
Yeah.
So that's clearly the case here or in Friends or wherever where you're, like, everyone lives about, 30 seconds away or whatever. And it's so funny but it does work. Max comes over and then she always eats all of their food. And that's
all
her
the time.
thing is that she's always eating, which is hilarious because she's so like rail thin and she's just, and she plays that up and it's just hilarious.
They went to some fancy like black tie party or whatever and she's just going around looking for all the food. And it is hilarious because it takes her out of situations where she's supposed to be paying attention and or like the girls need her help and she's like, I can't right now, I'm eating.
I'm obsessed with food.
Obsessed with food. In season 2, Regine has breast reduction surgery to cure her back problems. And this was because Kim Fields had already had the surgery before she came back to work for that season.
Oh, did not know that.
And here's another TV tangents fact that you're going to love. Before he auditioned for the part of Overton, John Henton was going on all these auditions and his agent asked him like what he was looking for and whatever. And he said, if you can get me to work with Kim Coles, because he had a huge crush on her. Aww. He just wanted to work with her. So then obviously he was happy when the two of them like became a couple on the show. Aww. And he got to make out with her all the time.
That's so cute.
But he actually ended up dating Kim Fields for a couple years in the very beginning of the series. And then she married her first husband right after she broke up with John Henton. Like right after.
I was going to say, I saw she got married like during the series.
Like she got married so fast that there was an article in like a magazine or whatever that mentioned that those two were dating, that she was dating John Henton, but she had already gotten married by the time it was printed.
Oh, geez.
To someone else.
Interesting.
And he was also engaged to someone at that same time, but it didn't work out. So it's like a weird, mysterious overlap.
Huh. Very interesting.
So I found that a fun fact. Both of those things. Yeah. I think it's adorable that he had a crush on her. And
that's
like,
so cute.
I wonder if he was like, I think these two should date.
He's like, these two should probably get together.
That's a really fun fact.
Oh my God, I love that.
We have to talk about the cast, but I think we should
come back for another episode
next week. Woo-hoo. Because there's so much to talk about with
there
the cast.
is. I have so many more things to say.
Yeah, and we have so many more things to say, and I think we could talk about it for like days and days and days.
Days and days.
So why don't we wrap this up?
Okay.
You all can visit us on the TikTok, on the Facebook, on the Instagram, on the Twitter sometimes. Do people still use Twitter? I don't know.
Sometimes.
Not very much.
No.
But yeah, look us up. Say hi to us. Email us at tvtangents@gmail.com and tell us what other shows you want to watch because we are going to need some more shows to watch.
We need some suggestions.
I mean, we're in the middle of a show right now, but we need some more.
For sure.
So let's wrap this up.
Let's go.
See you next week.
Clink.
Clink.
Burning it out. Definitely nobody wants to hear us rap, so that's good.